stay tuned for a special presentation, Ward AME's annual Lay Day weekend.
It's Pastor Chris, and here we are in week 2 of our series called Black History Makers, where we're looking at the lives and legacies of famous Christians in history so that their faith story can inspire your own. Today we're going to look at the story of a man who paved the way for the civil rights movement. Richard Allen was born into slavery in 1760 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. His family was sold to a slave owner in Delaware, but when the plantation struggled financially, his mother and 2 of his siblings were tragically sold off, leaving a young Richard, an older sister, and an older brother to be raised by their father. Reflecting on that day, Richard would say,
"My mama, 2 of my brothers, and a sister were sold. As was often the case, we never saw or heard from them again. My papa and the rest of us were heartbroken. In confusion and grief, I searched for answers."
And while searching for answers, Richard and his siblings heard about a church meeting that was happening at night deep in the woods near the plantation. Once there, Richard heard a preacher condemning the evils of slavery and talking about freedom that Christ died to give them. Freedom from slavery and freedom from sin. The message captured Richard's heart. He asked Jesus to free him from all the chains and would later write,
"I cried unto him who delights to hear the prayers of a poor sinner. And all of a sudden, my dungeon shook. My chains flew off. And glory to God, I cried. My soul was filled. I was free."
A young Richard Allen was now on fire with his faith and ran around telling anyone and everyone who would listen about the love of God. And slowly but surely, the heart and skill of a preacher was born. But God's freedom for Richard wasn't complete. Eventually, Richard's slave owner became convicted of his sins as a slave owner and agreed that Richard could purchase his freedom for $2,000. Adjusted for inflation, this is about $70,000 in today's economy. And so while this wasn't entirely an act of grace by his former slave owner, Richard was inspired to work for his freedom. In 3 years, earning less than what we would call minimum wage, he had saved up enough money to purchase his freedom. Soon after, during the Revolutionary War, Richard found work driving a salt truck and ever the evangelist. While he traveled, Richard saw this as an opportunity to continue preaching from Maryland to New York to Pennsylvania. Eventually, St. George's First Methodist Church in Philadelphia invited this gifted preacher to come preach to its black congregants. Allen was given the 5 a.m. service, but he was soon attracting an increasingly larger black congregation. However, the increasing number of black people in the church made the white members nervous and upset that things like their favorite seats were hard to come by. This continued until one day when Richard and his friend Absalom went to church. They sat down in their pew, and then when the service started, they knelt down to pray. But while they were praying, an elder of the church approached them and asked them to leave. Absalom told the elder that they would leave after the prayer time was done. The elder refused and started to lift up Absalom by his arm. Richard, sitting next to him, described what happened next.
By this time, prayer was over, and we all went out of the church as one. And there were no more played with us in that church.
It was a small but monumental moment in time. This moment would later be cited as the formative, if not founding moment of the nonviolent resistance that marked the civil rights era. Rosa Parks, Claudette Colvin refusing to give up their seat on the bus, or the thousands of diners refusing to give up their seats during sit-ins could all trace their inspiration back to that brave group of black congregants in Philadelphia. That group that walked out formed their own congregation, and they started meeting in a blacksmith shop that was in need of repairs, but it served its purpose.
I put the first spade in the ground to dig a cellar for the African Methodist Church. This will be the first African American church or meeting house that was erected in the United States of America.
It was a significant moment in history in and of itself. This blacksmith shop is now called Bethel Church and the first black church in America. But it became historic for other reasons when later on it would be used as one of the stops on the Underground Railroad. For the next 2 decades, the Methodist denomination used litigation, fines, and harassment to stop Allen from declaring Bethel a Methodist congregation where black Methodists could worship freely. But Allen was undeterred and would write,
"If you deny us your name, You cannot seal up the scriptures from us and deny us a name in heaven.
The attempts of the Methodist denominational leaders to rein in Allen and his black parishioners reached a climax in 1815 when the Supreme Court ruled that Bethel was a legally independent church. And just a few months later, African American ministers from across the Mid-Atlantic region gathered in Philadelphia to bring their own congregations into fellowship with Bethel, and the African Methodist Episcopal Church was established. Today, the AME denomination boasts 2.5 million members nationwide in nearly 8,000 congregations. This is just a snapshot of what happened in Richard's life, but hopefully you can see the character and the heart of a man who God used to do some incredible things. Richard died in 1831 at the age of 71 years old. Knowing his end was near and reflecting on a life of slavery and oppression and justice, Allen would write,
Lord, be thou my comfort and support at the hour of death, and then I shall be content to leave this world as a captive that is released from his imprisonment.
It's an incredible story. And I'd be remiss if I didn't take a moment as a pastor, and in particular as a white pastor, to reflect on what this means for me personally. In the book of Nehemiah, Nehemiah begins by confessing his sins to God and also confessing to God the sins of his forefathers. And I should be able to do the same, both for myself and also for the people I represent. I am deeply saddened by the way the church institutionalized racism and used God to deepen the divide between themselves and brothers and sisters like Richard Allen. And we have sinned against you in thought, word, and deed, by what we've done and by what we've left undone. We've not loved you with our whole hearts, and we justly deserve your anger. And I am sorry. And I'm asking for your forgiveness so that we can work towards reconciliation and we can work towards being a church as diverse as the city we serve. And we can demonstrate among us the unity that Jesus has won for us through the cross. And you guys being here this morning and taking part in this discussion is one great way that we can all take a step forward. So thanks for being here this morning for the discussion. Have a great time, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Good morning, World AME Church. To Reverend Barry Settle, to the President of the lay organization, Brother John Brown, to the Director of Lay Activities, Sister Jacqueline Dupont Walker, to all the members of World AME Church, I greet you in the name of the Lord, the Father, and Jesus Christ. This morning, I'm thinking of my subject, delegation or delegating authority as an important leadership characteristic. Delegation as a noun is defined as the act of delegating a particular job to someone. Delegation incorporates empowering direct reports through effective leadership. I've also read that the synonyms of delegations are dominion and commission. With those two, I believe that before commencing with my presentation, it will be prudent that we first understand the definition of the three terms, namely delegation, and look at synonyms, dominion and commission. Delegation as a noun, like I said earlier, is an act of delegating a particular job or duty to someone. So delegation is assignment of authority to another person, namely from a senior person to a junior, tasking them to carry out specific activities. So delegation is a process of distributing and entrusting work to another person, where a senior passes the work or decides to give the work to a junior, which they will be able to complete as delegated. Now, Now, senior is not necessarily an elderly person. Senior can also be a young person who's senior to an elderly person, and therefore that work is delegated from a senior to a junior. Now, from the scriptures focus, we look at delegation from Exodus 18, 21 and 22. Exodus 21, 18 verse 21 reads, "Moreover, you shall choose from all people able men such as God's fearing men, men of truth and fearing covetousness. And if you want to walk fast, walk alone. But if you want to walk far, walk with others." Thank you, my brothers and sisters. And may the good Lord continue to bless you in the work of the good Lord. Thank you very much.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, Ward AME Church. What a pleasure to be with you. To Pastor Barry Settles and First Lady Settles and officers and members of this great church. To my president of the Connection on Lay organization, Mr. A. McKeesey. To your local president, Mr. John Brown. Bless you, sir. And to your doula of your local church, Sister Jackie DuPont Walker. Now, Jackie holds a lot of titles, so I'm not going to focus on all those titles because she's well-versed, well-known, and just all over. But I'm just going to focus on the doula because this is where I believe her passion and one of her desires are. So I just wanted to come by and just to greet you all, salute you, and thank you for continuing to be steadfast in your execution of the lay organization and just being steadfast in the Word of God. I'm sure you've had a lot of activities in your annual day 23. Annual day 23, I'm sure you have been fed, you've been taught, you have been in workshops and just received a host of information just to prepare your mind, your souls, and your body to go out and do what God has sought and taught you to do. Now, I see that your theme is faith, faith, faith. God said it, let's go do it. God said it, let's go do it. So I know that you all are prepared. But I'm just going to leave you with this. And I know you probably heard this before. It said, don't tell God how big your storm is. Tell the storm how big your God is. Tell the storm how big your God is. So with that caveat, no matter what you're facing at home or in the community or in church or when you're planning or anything that you're doing, when you're facing a storm or a challenge, face that storm with God first. Tell that storm that I serve a God who is faithful, who is delivering, and who can move anything, who can move mountains. So again, don't tell God about the storm. Tell the storm about your God. Now let me go back to Sister Jackie. Sister Jackie is a pillar in AME Church. She's a pillar in the community. She's well known, internationally known. Now I thank Jackie for allowing me to come out here to come and say a few words to the lay organization and all the things that you all are doing. But I thought let Jackie, with all her connections, that she would just fly me out there to be out there with you all to learn and train and execute. Because LA is one of my favorite spots, that she would fly me out there. I could maybe give me some Roscoe's chicken and waffles or something. Attend a Lakers game. I had to watch it on TV last night. But let me get off of that. But I thank Jackie. I thank Jackie for the servant leader that she is in AME Church. I thank her for her activism in the community. I thank her for her passion that God is leading her to do in the things that, in terms of training, in terms of being delivered, in terms of being focused about the mission of social actions. So I know she's planned and she's executed a lot of things for her local church. And I know you all are fed. I know you all are equipped. And I know that you all are prepared. So on behalf of the 5th District Lay Organization, I thank you all for being steadfast. And I wish you God's speeding blessings as you continue to go out to execute His word and the mission of the Lay Organization. Again, Lay Annual Day 23. God said it. Now you all must go do it. God bless you.
A special thank you to all of our participants, as well as those joining us online and in person for our Lay Day weekend. You can still